evening. How are you this evening?
I am just blessed and fine.
Wonderful, wonderful. You know, it's a beautiful day, and what makes my day beautiful today is I'm up here interviewing you, and we're going to talk about some things of the past.
Okay.
This is Black History Month, and we're going to talk about some things that happened in your life. I understand that you have some history under your belt.
Well, I wasn't really thinking about it as being anything to talk about for some time. I just kept quiet about it.
Yeah,
And
so you lived here in the First of all, your name is Mrs. Eula
McCants.
McCants Bogan.
Yes.
Miss McCants, I remember you from the hospital,
Okay.
and I'm talking about something, now. But we're gonna go back to the past. Okay, let's talk
All right.
about. And so many people know you here in Atmore from the hospital. How long did you work at the hospital?
I worked at the hospital for 39 and a half years.
Oh my goodness, 39 and a half years. So
Yes.
that means that you have seen so many people go on, so many people born,
Oh, yeah.
so many people get well and be blessed and go home.
Mhm.
I know that's a joy to see someone that you wait on
Yeah.
get up out of that bed and be able to go home.
Yes, indeed, because I worked specifically in ICU, CCU, so there were a lot of crises that occur when you work in critical care. And some people never leave, and some does get well and go home. So it was always a happy time
Always a happy
when
time.
someone could go home.
Yeah, so did you always work in ICU?
Most of the time, yes.
That's where I
started
remember you
critical
from.
care.
ICU. So my dad had to be admitted to the hospital back in 1960, probably close to the early 70s.
Mhm.
And I remember Atmore Community Hospital being, I think, on Main Street. Is that right?
There was a time when it was on Main Street of town, but it had another name. I think
It
it was
did?
Atmo General. I
Atmo
believe it
General.
was, yes.
And speaking of, I know that was back there during the time of civil rights.
Yes.
So when my mom carried us, which was 14 of us, at the time it was 13, and we were packing the station wagon and we would go to this hospital because my dad would always, have kind of illness.
Mm-hmm.
So when we went, my dad was on the bottom floor of the hospital.
Okay.
Yes. We had to step down in this bottom part, and they had bunk beds.
Oh, wow.
They sure did. Do you remember that? You weren't
No,
here
I
then.
wasn't here then,
Okay.
but I have heard of it, and that there was a big separation in the races, so to speak.
Yes,
And
yes.
so when I came here, we improved some, and we were more diversified.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. So now let's go back to your childhood.
Okay.
And I'm just going to ask you some questions, and we're just going to move right along. I have been knowing you for a long time, and I heard you speak at your church, which is Gaines Chapel AME Church, right? Methodist
Yes.
Church.
AME.
AME.
Methodist.
African Methodist Church.
Mhm.
So how long have you been attending that church?
I have been attending that church since 1970. That's when I came
1970.
back to Atmore, and since my family was there, my father started preaching from that church, and then naturally I went back to it.
Yeah, so speaking of your father, let's go way back.
All right.
So who were your parents?
My father was Paul James McCann, Sr., and he was going around Wilcox County, down around Coy and all those places down there, the smaller places. And his family moved to Atmore.
Okay.
And so he was a mill worker and all, and he stayed here with his family. And that was the McCants family.
Okay, the McCants family.
Yes. My mother is from Mississippi, but her father was in the World War I, and he was from North Carolina, and my grandmother married him when he was a soldier, and he must have met him when he was traveling through Mississippi.
And this is your,
This is my mother's
that's your
father.
mother's father.
Yeah, and so
So what was your mother's father's name?
his name was Reverend Henry Ernest Holmes. He
You
was
know-
a preacher also.
You know, back in the day, my granddad was a preacher as
All
well.
right,
His name was Reverend James Walker.
all right.
And it's just amazing how there were so many preachers. You know why?
Mhm,
Because that's where they got their comfort.
mhm.
That's where people came together.
Yeah.
And they didn't have a church now. They
Uh-huh.
met up in rooms in their house, in their homes, and
Okay.
they had to kind of like hide. So let's talk about your civil rights movement. I
Okay.
know, I heard you, you were my guest on the ML King program for 2023 right here.
Mhm.
And as everybody see, we are in the Manual Faith
Oh,
Center
yeah.
with Bishop Wayne Johnson is the pastor. He and his wife Vonda. And this is such a community-minded church.
Yeah.
So, how old were you when you started when you were with the civil rights movement?
I was in my early 20s. I had just married. I was in school in Atlanta, Georgia, and I met my husband, and we moved back to his hometown, which was Crawfordsville, Georgia.
Crawfordville, Georgia.
Yes.
Now, tell me a little about Crawfordville, Georgia.
Crawfordsville is in Teleferry County, Georgia, 159th County.
Okay.
It is situated like 100 miles east of Atlanta. Milledgeville, 40 miles to the south. In Athens, Georgia, to the left 40 miles.
Wow, you know your stuff, don't you?
Yeah, in Augusta, Atlanta, I'll say the west, but Augusta was in the east.
In the
Augusta was
east.
60 miles from there, so we
So
were
how many
situated-
people lived in this town?
We had 5,000 or 6,000 people.
5,000 or 6,000.
Yes. And there were other little outlying communities, but it was a county seat, so we had everything that most cities would have, government side, the courthouse, we had lawyers, we had everything that you would want in a little town. If we wanted something more, we'd go to Augusta, or even
Yes.
take a trip to Atlanta.
Okay, so tell me about your childhood in Crawfordville.
Well, I was, you mean
I mean, when you,
When
during
I
the civil rights movement,
during
when
the
you
civil
were
rights
active.
movement. I went there with my husband, and I had to learn the ways of that community, because like I say, this was a little bit more country than what I was used to. And, but I quickly found my way around,
Okay.
and I thank God for the talent I had of being a musician, because people quickly learned me. Somebody suggested, it might have been in the family, they say, well, we got a lot of churches around here don't have any musicians.
Oh,
And
okay.
so that's how I really got known.
So that's how you got known here.
Yes, and then I went to work at the school because they needed someone there that could deal with the school choir and then do other things,
Oh, okay.
And
So
I
what school was
served,
that?
Merton High School.
Merton High School.
Yes, indeed. And they had it was a county school, and there were a lot of students there
Wow.
because they came from all over the county.
And this was a predominantly black school.
Yes,
Yes. Because
Uh-huh.
we're talking about the beginning of the civil rights movement.
that's right.
That's right.
And you see, the people there, they were proud of their children going to school there.
Oh, I
And,
know.
but like I said, it was predominantly black, but not run by the blacks,
Not,
of course.
well, most
So,
of, yes.
yeah, that was the thing about being there. So we had some people who were landowners out in the area called Springfield,
Mhm.
and they had their own land, and they raised their vegetables and crops, and we even had one man that was a dairy farmer out there.
Oh,
Had another man who in town had a garage, and then we had several little business owners,
and were these were,
black people.
okay, good.
Yes, and my husband
Yes.
was a professional barber.
All
and
right
so
then.
A lot of them got to know us because they were always
So did he
coming
have
in.
this little red, white, and blue?
No, he didn't. They just came. He had a special room in the house.
special room.
that they would all come. And it was on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays when he was the
Yes.
busiest. People wanted to get the haircut because they wanted to go to town.
So let me ask you this,
Church.
what led you to be a part of the civil rights movement?
While working at the school, one of the teachers, Calvin Turner, asked if I would be interested in going to Savannah, Georgia, to a special workshop put on by his COC.
Yes.
So they chose me and another lady, her name was Udella Edwards. And they paid our expenses and sent us there. That was a good piece off.
Wow, that was
Savannah
great, that was great. Uh-huh.
So we went to Savannah, and it was a little place called Dorchester Center,
Mhm.
and the little community was called Hinesville.
Yes.
It was like a dorm, and it had auditorium, a cafeteria, classroom.
And this is college.
No, this was not a college.
Oh,
It
this
was
was-
just a place where people went to have retreats or
Oh, okay.
workshops. And so
Okay.
SCLC was using it to teach people. They
Oh, to
came from
teach.
different states. They were from South Carolina, Mississippi, and Alabama.
Well, did he have a problem with racism during that teaching?
No, you mean at the school?
Yes.
The school was predominantly black.
Okay.
And the only problem that the teachers had was that they had a superintendent, and she was a female.
Okay.
And she just felt at will whenever she wanted to come into the school, she would just come in and she decided she wanted to throw a test.
Yes.
She didn't tell the teacher, she just bring them and
Just throw a
say, and tell
test.
her, look, I'm fixing to give a test today.
Mm.
So she didn't confer with any of the teachers about
Oh,
anything
okay.
she wanted to
That
do.
must have been hard.
And can you imagine, I don't think the superintendents now just go up in the school and go into
No,
classrooms.
they let
and
them know
disturb
when they're
them.
coming, I believe.
But she would just walk in when she felt like it. And that was some of the problem there.
Yes.
And
And sometimes I worked in the school system for many
Mhm.
years, and sometimes they would come and just sit up in your classroom.
yeah, but this lady just walked in when she felt like it. She lived right there in town. Her husband was the pharmacist at the drugstore in town, and so she pretty much did like she wanted to.
Okay, so beyond that school life,
Mhm.
how did you become a full civil rights activist? What are some, well, I guess I'm asking you, what are some of the things in your life
That led to that.
that led to that?
Being brought up as a AME preacher's daughter, Prattville, Alabama. That was when the Rosa Parks movement started, the boycott. My father was going across the river to all the mass meetings, and he and my mother would get babysitters for us, and they would go on across the river, and they'd
Yes.
come back and wouldn't say anything. Then there were people that would come knock on our doors at night, needing somewhere to stay. They would let them in.
And were these people
They were people that were maybe in trouble, running
in
from
trouble?
the law or
Mhm.
racial problems or whatever. But Prattville was a pretty, it was a small town. And, we lived in a white neighborhood.
Mhm. And we're talking about Prattville, Alabama.
Yes, Prattville,
Yes.
Alabama.
Okay.
We lived on a street where no other families were black except us.
Wow.
And the sheriff lived right behind us. The courthouse was next door.
And this was in the
jail house.
70s,
In the 50s.
in the 50s?
Yes,
Oh.
40s, late 40s and 50s.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're right, 50s.
And so we got used to playing with all white kids
Mm-hmm.
as our playmates. We went
Good.
to all black school now. Our church was sitting in that neighborhood, but the
Mhm.
blacks had to come into the neighborhood to come to church
Come
there.
to church, and it was
Yeah.
okay, you didn't have any problem.
No,
coming
we
to
didn't have any
church.
problems with that.
Good.
And we became friends with all the other little kids because other kids would come play with us sometime. We ain't playing with y'all no more. Y'all play with these white children. That's what they would tell us, you know.
Yeah, you were telling me something in our conversation about a pound cake.
Yes. The pound cake part came later on, and
Oh, okay, well,
I
you-
will tell you about that.
Okay.
And so then we left Prattville in '56 and moved to Troy, Alabama.
Mhm.
In Troy, Alabama, everybody know there's Troy State University.
That's
It
right.
was Troy
My son
State
lives
College
there.
then.
Yes.
So that's where I learned a little more about civil rights from, like I say, my father was an outgoing preacher. We had one of the larger churches in Troy,
Mhm.
and he was a full-time pastor. And so he had kept an office open every day. And so that was his thing. And he worked in his office just like he was working on a job, and he went visit the sick and whatever. And when he wasn't doing that, he was in his office typing or whatever he needed to do. So we children got a pretty good idea of what it was like to be kind of, our father didn't have to go work on the farm or anything. My mother didn't work, and so there we were right there in town. But my father was very sympathetic to the movement.
So, you say your father didn't work
No, he worked there as a pastor. He
as
went
a
to his
pastor?
office every
Okay.
day.
Yes.
And in the evenings, he would go on the radio station and do evening reflections.
And what year was this?
This was in the 50s.
Wow.
Yes, and everybody got used to him, you know,
Being on the radio.
being on the radio, because he didn't play any music, he just did a Bible study like on the Troy station. But the main thing that came about was our visitor to the house all the time. We lived on Academy Street,
Mhm.
and around the corner from us was Lake Street. And at the bottom of Lake Street down there was a little area called the Chicken Shack.
Okay, the chicken shack.
It was a cluster of houses there, and that's where John Lewis lived.
Oh, the
So,
John Lewis.
The John Lewis,
Okay.
and he was a frequent visitor to our house because of the fact that he knew that Daddy was one of the prominent preachers in town. We had one of the larger churches, and he would come to our house wanting to talk to Daddy.
Mhm.
Whenever he was home from college, or if he was freedom riding, he was a freedom rider at that time, because
Okay.
Daddy told us that. He was young, head full of hair, you know, he was not a very tall man, but he would come and he'd ask to see Daddy. And we got used to seeing him come, because when he came to see Daddy, that meant that night, it used to be on a weekend, on a Sunday.
Well, I'm gonna ask you this about him. You know, he always wore this hat
Yeah,
and his trench coat.
but he didn't have that then, he
He
had a
didn't
bushy
have
head
that,
of
he had
hair.
a bushy head of hair.
Yeah, and he come around the corner wanting to see Reverend McCanson. So he talked to Daddy, and then when we had church, all the churches had night services there.
Oh, okay.
So here he goes. I say he's coming to see Daddy. So guess who's gonna preach tonight? That's what the children we say
Yes.
to each other. We were like teenagers in John Lewis.
Mhm.
So we got used to him preaching on Sunday nights when he was
So-
home.
You are a very remarkable lady, and for me to hear you say that you met all these people,
Yeah.
I mean, I was a little girl.
Oh yeah.
I was a little girl.
Yes, you were a little younger than I am.
Yes, just a little, just a little younger than you are.
Yes.
But to hear you say you met Rosa Parks, Reverend John Lewis.
I didn't meet Rosa.
Oh, you
because-
did meet her.
But my father pastored the church she belonged to in
Oh,
Montgomery.
okay. And you were
Later
small.
I was small when the boycott
Mhm.
came along. I was probably 10, 11, somewhere in there,
Mhm.
you know. But I know they were going across the Alabama River at night to go into Montgomery. We
Yes,
wasn't
going
12
across.
miles from
Mhm.
Montgomery.
Okay, okay.
Mhm. Yes, but John stayed in Troy, and so we just got used to him coming around, and I knew he preached, you know, and everything, and so anyway, I found out later on that some of his people were at a church outside of Troy where my father taught classes at, and
Okay.
went there and preached revivals, and so I imagine that's how he met my father, because my father was always at this church where most of his people belonged to,
Yes.
and it was Don's Chapel AME Church, which was out from Troy.
So have you always belonged to AME?
AME all my life,
Wonderful.
and for a short time in Georgia, I dealt with the CMEs because it was not an AME church close to where I live. And so I played for the CME church there.
Okay.
Yeah, I played for some of the Baptist churches too, because they didn't have church but one time a month. And
Yeah,
you got
so-
a lot of churches in a month time.
Right,
Yeah.
so what are some of the most tedious times of your journey?
And the most tedious time was being in Crawfordville after I had come out of high school and gone to college, and Atlanta. But I'll tell you something first. The main thing that bothered me was back in Troy. I was what they call a diversified occupation student.
Okay.
I worked in the hospital
Mhm.
and I worked a full shift while I was in high school,
A full shift.
a full 8-hour shift.
Mhm.
They would let us out of school at 2. I'd go home,
Okay.
change into a uniform, and go to the hospital and work from 3 to 11 in this hospital there.
From
They had
3
2
o'clock to
hospitals
11
in
at
this
night.
town. Yes.
Mhm.
Then go home like 11:30, 12 o'clock.
So when did you have time to study?
I tried to study while I was working.
Okay.
And that's when I first met with the real certification.
Mhm.
Black patients was in the bottom of the hospital.
That's what I'm telling you about my dad.
Yeah.
When we would go, my mom would pick us up and she would say, come on, we're going to see your daddy.
And y'all
And when we went to see my dad, we had to step down in the basement.
Mhm.
And I will never forget, it rained, it stormed. When we went down in the basement, we waded in water like this.
Wow.
Because their beds were like bunk beds
Oh,
stacked
yeah.
up. And they were off the iron bunk beds,
All right.
stacked up off the floor. And so when we went in, that's the way it was.
Well, it wasn't quite that bad because this was supposed to be
We said it wasn't that bad.
hospital. Troy had 2 hospitals, Edgewater's, which was one hospital,
Mhm.
and Beard Hospital, which was the one where most people that was a little affluent went to. So I worked there, and when the lady that was with the black patients would be off, they would send me down there. But this was not quite, you could enter from the street. And it was emergency room on the, down the hall. And the kitchen was around the corner, so all this
Well,
was
we
on the
didn't-
first, whatever level that they called it, the floor level, main
Okay.
level.
We never got a chance to see that part of the hospital.
Yes.
And if I did, I was so little, but I can remember going in that hospital down in the
Down in
basement
there.
to see my dad.
That's right, and so only black people were down there. And what bothered me, the white women had nurseries upstairs on a floor where they were mainly OB floor.
See?
And the black people, when they had babies, they brought them there and put them in a little old bassinet right side the bed. I took care of little old babies that weren't but 2 pounds and
Oh.
fed them with eyedropper. They were so small. And I don't know how they live, but they live. But
The
I
grace
saw
of
all
God.
of that back
Nobody
then.
but Jesus.
And I don't know, and there I was, a high school
A
student
high school
down there
student.
singing about patience. And the
seeing
only
about-
time anybody came down there, when I was working down there, was to bring medicine, give them their medicine.
Mhm.
But the old black lady that worked there, she was on an aid.
Mhm.
She gave them their meds and everything, cause they had meds down there for them to
Oh,
give 'em.
okay.
But being that I was a student, but I did everything else. And, I did a lot of things, and that's what made me decide I wanted to be a nurse.
To be a nurse.
Because but what got me, we worked 5 days a week. It didn't matter whether it was on a Saturday or Sunday,
Or
whatever
Sunday.
day it fell on, you got a weekend maybe every once in a
Right.
while. And Troy State was there. They had nursing students who came and worked only 4 hours
And went home.
and went home, and we were there for a full hours. It was 2 of us girls. They took 2 from the high school. I said, how can they let this be? You know, here we are working in this hospital doing a complete shift and only getting $5 a week.
$5 a
A
week.
dollar a
Lord
day.
Jesus.
And we got paid every 2 weeks.
And you work 8 hours
Worked 8
for
hours.
$5 a day.
I was homecoming queen, or the school queen, and I remember that they wouldn't even let me off to go get my crown. And I had put on, they let me off for just a few hours. I went home, I had already been at work now. I went home, put on an evening gown, went to the school, and went through my whole coronation. They crowned me, and then had to get my clothes back off again and go back to work at 11 o'clock.
So you couldn't even enjoy your.
I couldn't even enjoy being the school queen.
Being the school
Miss Academy
queen.
is what I was.
Wow.
And they said I had to come back. My teachers tried to get me off, but they
wouldn't do it.
they wouldn't do it. And then when I got ready to go to college, I asked them to let me off to go take my pre-entrance exams
If they let you do
in
it.
Atlanta. I took two pre-entrance exams. I took one at the Medical Center in Columbus, Georgia. I went to Columbus, Georgia. And then I went to Atlanta to take pre-entrance exam, because when you went into a nursing school, you had to take an exam.
Okay.
I passed both exams, the one in Columbus. They were not at the same time, but when I went to go to Atlanta, they wouldn't give me off.
Oh, really? So
They-
did you get a chance to go?
I'm gonna tell you what happened. I took off,
You took off.
and I had to go on a bus to Atlanta to go up there and take the test.
Well, I'm
I had
so
to stay
proud of
overnight.
you. Yes.
And then I had to come back home the next day. So when I get back to work, they called me in and asked me, you didn't show up for work. And I said, yes, I requested off to go take my pre-entrance exams. And this was the RN talking to me. She was the director of nursing.
Yes.
Oh, well, that's just a drop in the bucket. And I said, well, look, I'm finished with high school now. And I do not plan to stay here and work like I'm working.
That's right. That's right.
They wanted me to stay there, and then they were gonna get two more students, and I was just gonna be a regular worker. See, they got two students from the high school every year. And they wanted me to just stay there, and they didn't want me to go any further. And so I told her, I said, well, if you feel like that, then I think what I need to do is just go home.
That's
And I
right.
left there,
That's right.
and I went home, and then I went to Massachusetts, and got a job working there in Bridgeport, not Bridgeport, in Newington, Connecticut, which is right out of Hartford, in a convalescent home. I
I'm
worked there
so
to
proud
time
of
to
you
go
for
to
not letting that stop you.
They wanted me to stay there and see it. I was through with high school. Why keep me?
But they wanted to treat you like you were
That's right.
still there, that you were not trying to further your education.
That's right. Didn't want me to.
Well, I applaud you for
And
keeping on going.
I hate I had to quit like that. I just walked
Yes,
on
but
out.
you have to do what you have to do.
That's
because
right.
if people won't help you, then you have to take care of yourself.
That's right. And so I say, and I knew I had seen those students from Troy State. I said, now they're gonna be nurses, and these
Yes.
people want me to stay here and not go to school.
Right. When you're looking at nurses, that's
Yeah, and I
going
was looking at all those flyers in the
on.
library.
Did they wear white?
Oh, they had
Oh.
their caps and capes on, and I said, oh, I got this. So the only black student in Alabama was Tuskegee, that had a nursing school, but it was hard to get in there. So that's why I chose to go out of state, because you stayed there and then you came out from there. So that's where I went to, and that's when I met my husband. And I was a junior when I came out. I didn't finish there, but I went home with them. And but they wanted me at the school because they knew I had some
Some
education.
education, and you worked at.
And they worked at the schools. There was not a hospital in that town. And so, but I still said, okay, I'm still gonna be a nurse.
Yeah. So tell me a little about the. What are some of your civil rights? We know that civil rights symbols are freedom.
Yeah. Well, we were taught the nonviolent concept.
Okay.
And no matter what was said or done to you, you did not violate.
That's okay.
And that was the main thing. And when I went to,
So was this doing with Dr. King?
this was done with the group down in Savannah.
Okay, what group was that?
This was a training group from NCOC. There was Andrew Young, Dorothy Cotton, who just passed back here. I saw her at the unveiling of the King statue for that,
Oh, okay.
in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And there was all the several preachers.
Yes.
All these were civil rights workers, and they were there to train us how to go back into our hometown and train the people.
Okay, so you were trained to go back into your
Mhm.
town and teach the other people, train the
That's
other
right.
people what to do.
That's
you
right.
know, in case of.
And I set up a school for illiterate adults. This was
Okay.
another thing they taught us, because you had to know how to read,
You
write,
had
and
to
vote.
know how to read.
You
So-
could not vote if you didn't know how to read.
Okay, and voting
Yes.
was one of the rights.
That's right.
We have a right to vote.
That's right.
That's right.
And so I set up a school at night on top of a funeral home. It was Hughes Funeral Home. It was right there on the back street of town. And, I had 3 or 4 students that come. And one man told me he could only just read the Bible. I said, "Oh, that's a good start."
That's good, yes.
So, I tried to teach them, how to just read some simple things, And, they were very, they were very good. They wanted to learn.
So you started school.
Yes, it was an adult school.
Wonderful.
And,
See, I told, not cutting you off, but you just have so many, you wore so many hats.
you had to,
So many hats. And I know for your son to hear all the things that you've done and where he is now in life is a blessing.
It's a blessing. It's a
It's a
blessing to
blessing.
have the children. But I tell you, the main factor in all of this is keeping God on your side.
On your side.
And I have always told my children, no matter where you go or what you do, if you get far away from home, find yourself a church.
Find yourself a church.
And that's the first thing you do,
That's right.
is find a church. And I've always told them to do that, and he's done that.
He's done it. That's
Yes,
good.
and my daughter, she goes in Montgomery, but she still wants to be affiliated with Gaines Chapel.
Yes,
So she comes
yes.
home every so often.
You
But
know
this
she
is some of the
does.
things that went down. So when I got back home from that week, and I tell you, that was some week because there were a lot of things I did not know.
Mhm.
I didn't know Andy Young then. And I remember him being a little short man, and I would be playing. They found out I could play at that thing,
And
and
so
I
they
ended
had
up
you
playing
playing
for
it.
that week
Mhm.
while we were there. We had a graduation, like when we lived there, because we were from different states. It was
Yes.
not that many of us, maybe 25 of us. And they taught us all this stuff that we were to do. So when King came and stayed with us, he ate supper and all that night, one night, and we were sitting there, and they put a film on. And that was a film of him receiving the Nobel Peace Prize.
Wow.
And then another guy came in with some music, and King had written a book called Stride Toward Freedom. And the
Mhm.
name of the song was Stride Toward Freedom.
Okay.
I have got to find that
Did
song.
you play that song?
I played it, but the music, I did not keep it because it belonged to somebody else.
Oh, okay.
But I'm
So
gonna have to find it.
how long were you with Dr. King?
Well, we were just there for that week, and
For
he
that
was just for a day or so.
Oh, okay.
And Andrew stayed with us the whole time.
Yes, Andrew Young.
Yeah, but King was there long enough for all of us to get to know
To
him.
get to know.
Every time I saw him, he was somewhere with his team, somewhere talking
Yes.
over whatever. Cause
Talking
all the
what's
Selma marching had just gone on,
Right.
and when we were there, and all. So a lot.
So were
had
you
happened.
involved in that?
No, that was here in Alabama, and so I was still in Georgia.
Yes, you was in Georgia. So have
Mhm.
you ever gone to the,
I've been to the museum in Selma.
yes,
I've been across the bridge.
been across, so have I.
I've been to all those places. And like I say, I was in DC when they
Mhm.
unveiled his statue.
Yes,
And I was telling you about how much those luncheon tickets cost.
yes.
And then I met his daughter again. She was one of the speakers, but Alexis Herman was the MC of the program.
Okay.
And so I got a chance to meet her and talk with her, let her know that she had another Alabamian there at that function. Met Maya Angelou, she was one of the participants on the program. India Aris and Bernice King was the speaker.
With the speaker.
And so after we got through with everything, that's when I got around and met some of them. And so I saw the one lady that had done this teaching in Savannah. She was an older lady named
Okay.
Dorothy Cotton. She's
Dorothy
dead
Cotton.
now. So a lot of the people that I did work with are gone. And I think Andrew is probably one of the only ones still left
Yes.
that was involved with us.
Mhm.
Because Maynard Jackson, he became the mayor of Atlanta.
Yes, he sure did.
And
He
after
did.
he didn't come to my house and wanted to eat, and I had to fry him some eggs. A lot of things went on. They were humorous things, but I think about there were some people that were still on the fence when it came down to marching with us.
Yes.
Now I told you about
And
my
we're
mother-in-law.
talking about people of color, right?
Yeah, our own people. My mother-in-law came there banging on the door one night and I let her in, and she said, "You and Bill gonna have to stop all this foolishness. Y'all marching and
Because they were
carrying on."
afraid.
She was afraid. She was an older woman, and James done lost his job because of y'all marching. and y'all gonna have to quit all this foolishness. And so I looked at my husband and I said, "You ain't for quitting." And so
You're
she
not
went
quitting,
on
huh?
back home.
Mm-hmm.
That weekend. My brother-in-law, who was about a teenager,
Yes.
I married into a family where there were 10 kids. There were
Okay.
2 sisters in Atlanta, my brother in New Jersey, but the other 7 was down there.
But it was 10 of them.
Yes, and so
Mhm.
some of them was little kids when I went into the
Yes.
family. This brother-in-law was like 14 or 15. He even been riding with some boys on the weekend.
Mhm.
And where my in-laws stayed was, their house was in the back where you had to go through the front, downside these white people's house to
Yes.
get back there where they stayed.
Mhm.
He got out of the car with those boys that night, and that man that owned the house up by the street started shooting, and he had to crawl home on his belly
Oh, my
to
goodness.
get to home. Now, take in mind, my mother-in-law had been to town and told
And
me,
that was her son.
but this was the summer.
Yes.
And next week, she was gone. They
Mhm.
moved to where the blacks had all the men and started renting a house out
Yes.
there.
Mhm.
And then we were marching, and I looked back. It was like 300 or 400 of us
Mhm.
marching every time we marched. And I looked back in the line, and that was my mother-in-law holding the sign saying, and she was marching. I said, I don't believe my
So
mother-in-law.
can you imagine what changed her mind when they did
When they
that to our
shot at her
son?
son.
Right.
That's right.
They're pulling that Moses instinct. Oh no,
Yes.
we're not having this.
Yeah, cause she come there, I mean, fighting mad with my husband.
Yes.
We all gonna have to quit it. And y'all doing all this foolishness. And James done lost his job. And so, he was working for a chap factory in the next county, but they let him go because they were
Because of the
marching.
marching.
Yeah. So a lot of
So
people,
what about the freedom riders?
Oh, well now, we didn't have any freedom riders then. Now, that was John Lewis.
Okay, that was
riding
John
with
Lewis
that
and
mob.
stuff. Yeah, okay.
And that's when he was coming to the house,
Mhm.
when he was doing his freedom riding. But we had a lot of people you just wouldn't believe that came to that town, and they were just from everywhere.
Right.
And
So-
they were white and black,
Mhm.
and they had to stay with us because it was no motels for them to stay in.
Mhm.
And they stayed with the black people and got up and went out and marched every day and picket and all and act like when that. So my mother comes up from Atmo. She gets to the house, and one day she was there. Here come this white girl from next door, running up in the house. So and so and so. She was talking to me. And my mama, being from Atmo.
Yes, what's going on?
You have to show me how to make a pound cake.
Mm-hmm.
And I told her, I said, okay, let's get the stuff out and we'll make a pound cake.
Mm-hmm.
And mama, what all these white folks doing coming in and out your house like this? She from Atmo, and she couldn't understand why all these people. I said, Mom,
Right.
these people are
So
civil
that didn't
rights
happen in
workers.
Atmo.
I say they are here because they are helping us. And I said they don't have any other friends but us. So yeah, they stole here in a rooming house next door. This black lady next door to me had a rooming house, and they were coming from over there.
Right.
And they weren't scared or nothing. And I didn't have sense enough to be
To
scared.
be scared.
I believed in the Lord, and I just
Yes,
felt like
because-
He protect us.
Mhm.
But they were some mean folks now.
Mm.
And I felt for those poor girls, they were away from home, and I
Mhm.
guess they say, here's someone about our age, and we can go over there.
Yeah, we can go over there and
Yeah.
see her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so they would come in and out, and Mama got used to it finally.
Good.
Yeah, my sister Betty came and stayed with me for a long time that summer, and she got used to going to the meetings and things because we had a good community action program going on.
Good.
We had a credit union going. We had gotten that sewing factory set up. My mother-in-law got a job in there.
Okay.
Believe it or not, never worked anywhere but in the kitchen.
So this sewing factory, I'm sure,
All
brought
for
a lot of
Bill
these mothers,
Enterprises. Yeah,
out of the houses, being
that's right.
housekeepers,
Yes.
to being maids,
Mm-hmm.
to go working on the factory.
That's right. And somebody had to do the kids. And so
Right. Somebody had to
we
take care of the
started
kids.
2 daycare centers.
Oh, right. And
And,
this was all in the black community.
All in the black community. That was through the community action program.
Mm-hmm.
And they had women to come like men to come and teach those women and men how they brought all this equipment there. And we got all of that started. And we had like 30, 40 kids in each daycare.
Right, so community action been around for a long time.
Yes, yes, that was Jose Williams from Atlanta
Mhm,
and
remember
Randolph
that name.
Blackwell.
mhm.
They came there. And we had offices set up for community action. We had a local preacher that headed the community action
Mhm.
program. We had all kinds of things. We had movie nights.
All
We
right.
did everything to keep our people interested. And so, the sewing factory, I'm hoping is still going.
Mhm.
Last I had seen was an article in Ebony Magazine saying that it
Yes.
was still running, but I don't know.
Well,
you
we would
know.
have to find that out.
We will have to find out
Yes,
now.
yes, yes.
And,
So let me ask you this. What would you tell, I know there's a big controversy going on right now about
Mhm.
Black history being taught in the school. So my opinion is that our history is just as important as anyone
Of
else's
course.
history. So what would you say to children uh, about Black history?
I will tell them first start with where they come from.
Where they come from, okay?
And once you get that set up in their minds on where their roots are,
Mm-hmm.
then you start telling them about the things that happened in history.
Yes.
Now, if they're not gonna have any books or anything at the schools on it, there's plenty online.
There's
and
plenty online,
they're
that's right.
computer savvy. The computer savvy, and they know more about getting online than we do. But if not, you can bring material in there for them to look at.
Yes.
And it's a lot out there.
And speaking of the AME Church,
Yes.
and I hope I'm right, but since all of this controversy
Mhm.
in Florida about teaching, they call it critical race theory or whatever.
Oh, yes.
They want all of that out of school. So
Mhm.
this AME preacher,
Mhm.
pastor, he's opening up his church.
Mhm.
And anybody can come and learn, and you will get credits for
Mhm.
learning.
We
For learning
have
the Black
churches that
history.
do that. We have churches that in Mobile that have places set up where people can come get their GEDs. I mean,
Yes.
we've been into
Mhm.
that. We had some computers and all at Gaines Chapel at one
Mhm.
time where people could come and learn what they want to learn.
Yes.
And they have always been open because if you think about the march from Selma to Montgomery,
Mm-hmm.
Brown Chapel AME Church
That's
was
right.
was the sole.
Was the sole leaders of
That's
that.
right.
Uh-huh.
And so you have to think we have played a part all these years
Mhm.
in all of the things. But I credit them too for opening up doors for our children and members to learn things.
Yes.
And that's why we started the debutante
And I
program
was just
back in
gonna
the
ask you, I
90s.
remember the debutante.
Yes, we had girls from
And that
all
was
over
right
this-
here in Atmore,
right
the
here
one.
in
The
Atmore.
debutante was right here in Atmore.
Debutantes for Christ, and we taught them.
Mm-hmm.
We would take them and tell them about Black history. And I had invited you one time to talk to
I
them
did,
about
and I came over and
We
I
had an
spoke to
African
them.
night.
You
and
sure
you
did,
came.
and I spoke to your group.
You spoke to our group. We carried them out to dinner. We picked up
Mhm.
the cost. We get them in there and we teach them table manners.
That's
And
right.
we'd have a speaker every time we went out to dinner, and that speaker would come in. It was
Mhm.
somebody from our community.
I
that would
remember
speak
that
to
so
them.
well.
And
Yes.
gave them tools with which to
Tools.
use, things they not gonna learn
And do you,
in school.
let me ask you
yeah,
this. Don't you think it would be beneficial to the churches now in the community to have programs like this?
Yes.
Because our school, they keep complaining about what's going on in the school.
That's where
My
Christian
dad
education
always said
comes
that.
in.
Charity starts at home and
Mhm.
spreads abroad.
That's right.
So we need to do it at home, teach our children at home, teach them in church, bring them up in the church, not
That's
send
right.
them, but take
Take
them.
Take them. And if you got programs in the church, we celebrate Black history at our church. We gonna be
I
doing
think
something
all
every
churches
Sunday.
should.
We also celebrate the Emancipation Proclamation, which we
Yes.
just got through with that program on watch.
And I've been to that
You
on
been
Sunday
to one of our
evening,
programs
yes.
for that. So we keep them versed in things that concern in the Black community.
Mhm.
And,
That's
people
one
just
good
don't
thing.
know. Yes,
That's a good thing about about you all,
yeah,
because you do a lot of teaching
yes.
about our history and our heritage.
We try to bring that
Mhm.
out, and it's just good to be able to do that without having anybody restrain us from doing it.
Right, and see,
Mhm.
I think that's what's happening now. They don't want this to be taught, but I would say to
That's
any
why you got the
parent,
churches and the
I was
homes
just about to say, I'd say to any
Yes.
parent, teach your
and
children.
organizations.
Let them know that they hadn't always had a video game
That's
and,
right. I watched the Pensacola Mardi Gras yesterday, and it was not Mardi Gras, I'm sorry, Martin Luther King parade. It was on
yes,
TV
okay,
yesterday.
okay.
It had lasted from 12:30 to 3:15
And where was this at?
in Pensacola.
Oh, okay.
And they aired it on TV yesterday. And I was just so happy to see all of the businesses.
Yeah, that's what I
all the
love.
fraternities.
And that's what I
that
wanted
was in
here,
that parade
was for
yesterday.
them to come on in and
Black
all,
businesses
right.
had their floats. And
every black business, every
Yeah.
black church, when those parades,
yeah,
or either march,
there were the
they
Alphas,
should
the
be there.
Kappas, the
Mhm.
Omegas, all of them had
Oh,
floats.
wow, I
Then there
love
were
that.
the AKAs and the Deltas, they all
Yes,
had
that's
floats.
what I'm
Then
talking
there were
about.
the Masons and the Eastern Stars. Everybody was in that parade.
Because when you were talking about your life from the
Yeah.
past, do you think they would have been allowed to walk the streets like that back then?
No,
No, not at all.
not at all.
So-
You know something, Sandra, if you think about it, my husband told me that one time when he was coming up, he came to town here in Atmo in the middle of the week.
Mhm.
And he went into a store to get something. I think it was some shotgun shells for that shotgun. And when he got in the store, one of the men asked him what was he doing in town. And this was because he didn't wait till Saturday to come, see.
Oh, he couldn't go through the week.
Blacks didn't come to town that much during the week. They always came most
On
on Saturday.
Saturday,
They
because they supposed to be
questioned
working
him.
through the week, huh?
That's
They think
right.
they're supposed to be,
He
okay.
said that they were looking at him crazy, and he said, I just went in there to get some shotgun shells, and he said they talked to me so ugly, I just left them on the counter and walked out. And I say, yeah, they didn't look for you.
What our people had to go through.
That's right.
That's why it's so important for us to show more love toward one
We
another.
got to be good to each other.
We have to be good.
And
We have to
we
show
cannot,
love.
if you got somebody trying to excel, try to help them, don't try to pull
And
them
don't
down.
try, and all this jealousy and
Oh,
envy
that
and
don't make
strife,
sense.
that's bad.
It is,
We need to learn how to pick each other up instead of bringing them down.
that's right. And I think that that's one of the first things we have got to learn.
We have to.
But there are some things, like you mentioned, the power of the vote is gonna be one thing in helping to change.
That's
things.
right. And you know what?
And the strength
Right.
in numbers.
Strength
And a
in
lot of people
numbers.
sit at home and say that I ain't going down there voting, and my vote
Right.
ain't gonna count no way, but that's wrong.
That's not true.
You know, every vote helps, and we just got to do it.
That's right. I don't care if the person that you vote for doesn't win.
That's
It's
right,
still your right to vote.
that's right.
People lived and they died
That's
for us to
right.
have a right to vote.
That's right. We ran a black man against that superintendent. It was the principal that she had fired, and he went while he only had a few hours to go, and so he went and got his PhD, and he came back at election time. And we were out trying to get all these people to vote for him. In spite of all the work that we had done,
Mhm.
all the getting out going from door to door,
Yes.
he still lost. Now that was that was a hurtful
I
thing
know
for
that,
me.
and because there's unfairness.
That's right.
It was unfair. I've been through that. I know.
And
how that
that
is.
was just something, and they had just passed the civil rights law saying that everybody could vote then,
Mhm, mhm.
and they had to knock out those tests, you see.
Yes.
And I was working with a summer community organization
Mhm.
for political education, and that group was called SCOPE. And that was a offshoot of SCLC, where they had us to go out and knock on doors and try to get people to vote then.
Yes.
But yet they still did not vote like they should. I don't know whether they didn't understand what they were doing or what, but all the marching, it just, oh, that upset me worse
I
than
know it
anything,
did.
because he did not get elected. And she still was the superintendent.
See,
She still was the
and
superintendent.
that happens, and see, that's one thing that discouraged people from
That's
voting.
right. But she was better though.
But we
after
cannot
that.
stop. We have to keep on going.
That's right. You see, when you demonstrate and let people know that you're gonna be she didn't do all that same stuff anymore. But she didn't pull any of the things about the test, but she was still showing up.
Yes.
At school. She was still showing up, and that was what was bad, you know. And I guess because she didn't have nothing else to do but just
Right.
show up there.
Just show up every day.
Every day. She was somewhere. But I learned that people can help people. And even if they don't want to take what you have to say to
Right.
you know, you could try to offer it in another context, you know.
Another approach.
Yeah, it's like it took somebody shooting at my
At your
mother-in-law's
son to wake her up. I said.
Yes, yes, that was one thing.
Well, I've always been a community activist,
And I think that.
and I just believe that everybody should be treated fairly.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
I know that we have fought for a long time, and I say we because even though I wasn't back there, we are still fighting.
We're still there.
Because we have things that instead of civil rights problems still.
Yeah, we're still having problems.
Yes, we're still having problems.
It's like I say, it has not gone away. And the only problem is you have to be perceptive enough to know when it's a racial problem.
Right.
Now it's hidden.
It's hidden
so well
until
when it comes at you, you don't realize that it's a problem.
Right.
But that's one good thing that after doing all of this civil rights stuff, I learned to see through all of that.
That's why I have to.
It's made me more perceptive, and I can see clearly when there's a problem there.
And you recognize the problem.
And they trying to hide it.
They trying to hide it. You
recognize
recognize
it. And that's what I'm afraid our young people don't understand.
They don't.
And sometimes just getting the education that you need, that doesn't open you up to the racial problems you're
That's
gonna
true.
have.
That's true.
That's not gonna open you up. And
Because you're gonna have a job when you get out.
that's
of school.
right. You got to learn how to deal with all different type of people. And I thank my father for having people of influence around the house all the time. They were always visiting him, so there were plenty of people that we could pattern our lives after.
Yes.
And they didn't make us hide when people came around, like the folk did. We want
like they say, get on in the kitchen.
No, we conversed with them and found out about them, and there was nothing said. And they kept plenty of reading material around. Daddy had the Troy Messenger coming to the house, the Montgomery Advertiser coming to the house. He had the Religious Education Journal coming there. And then at school, I could see the Birmingham News and everything else.
So that
New York Times at school.
So that way you all knew what was going on.
We knew what was going on. And like I say, people automatically just came there because of his associations. And we learned from those people. And I would tell you, we had somewhere like 38 educators in our church, that one church.
That one church.
That one church. We had business on, we had both funeral directors. We had one man that owned the insurance company there. We had people from all walks of life that belonged to our church. And when you got that many educators, then you can, and you have a big church like that, you can use them to, we had evening classes at church.
Yes.
Adam Christian Endeavor, that was a youth program.
See, they don't do that anymore.
Excuse me.
We used to go to church.
Yes.
We used to go to Sunday school.
BTU.
Yeah.
I know about
church.
BTUs.
Church, and then we're back at church at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, that's what we did.
6 o'clock, you were going to church.
We found out that we would get mad because we couldn't go to the movies on Sundays like the other kids because we was always at something.
Well, we weren't going to the movie anyway, so.
Yeah. Well, you know, Troy had a nice theater there.
So we're going to talk about the cores for how do you recognize the civil rights problems? You know, we're still, so the core thing of civil rights is, and we all have these rights, the right to vote, all people,
That's right,
the right to a fair trial,
that's right.
the right to government services.
That's
See,
true.
we hadn't had this all the time.
No, we
No.
haven't.
And the right to a public education.
That's true. And that's what I was talking about Troy State being there
Yes. Mm-hmm.
and having to leave home when it's a college right there in town
Mm-hmm.
to
And
go
go
to school.
and the right to use public facilities.
That's another.
And as we go on, we know, we couldn't vote.
No.
We couldn't vote. And we also, we never had a free trial. I mean, a fair trial, I mean. Because our men were killed in the street.
Oh, yes.
And we were,
You
it just
have a
wasn't gonna
lot
be so,
going
it just
on.
wasn't so.
It just wasn't.
And the other one, the government service, we weren't even allowed to go in the front door of a lot of places, so we
That's
didn't have
right.
government service.
No, you couldn't.
Yes, and the public education, we were always separated.
Segregated, yes,
Right,
that's
always
right.
segregated. But that's the one thing that was dear to my heart, was for us to have our own school,
That's right.
our own, because we had a lot of pride in what we did.
Yes,
We had the band,
of course.
the Escambia County Training School,
Eagles.
Eagles,
Yes, all that.
the Golden Eagles.
Yes. All of those.
Yes, and we had this great basketball team,
Mhm.
football team, and it was just
It was
great
just something to inspire and
to inspire. And the
our
band,
kids. They had something to look forward to.
yes,
And I know there are other things out here now for children, but we got to get back to the basics and
get back
and
to
get
the
them interested
basics,
in
right?
core things. We got to get back to reading.
Reading,
Not all these games on the
Yes.
computer. Everybody I want a game for Christmas and whatever.
no books
Get them interested in something besides,
besides the game.
computer games. And some of those are dangerous.
They're very
and bring
dangerous.
elements that you don't desire to have in your house.
That's true. That's true. Mhm.
So it's
Just
just
as
a lot
like
of things.
scary movies, I always tell
I don't like
my
it
children
myself.
right now. They'll tell me, they'll say, "Mama, you're not gonna let us watch this, but can we just watch a little bit?" I said, "No,
Mhm.
I don't want any of these spirits in my house.
Mhm.
If you never seen Chucky,
I
the
do
little
not
bad
wanna see it.
I say you would not be. If you don't see these things, you won't be afraid.
That's right.
But when they get in your spirit,
Yeah.
then you're afraid."
What about it? Them being interested in the game shows like Jeopardy, something.
Yeah, something that's
Higher
educational.
knowledge,
Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah, things that you use to keep your mind
Mhm.
sharp. But when it comes down to all of this space stuff and aliens and all of that, we need to
Yes, when
steer them away from that. I know they say they got a balloon out there right now. There's a spy balloon running around
yes.
China somewhere, and let them be interested in something. Get the news.
That's
And,
right.
and let them read the
My-
newspapers.
My grandchildren, they say, "Grand, all you do is watch the news," and I let them watch it with me
Mhm.
sometimes. And they have to go to Sunday school and church, and if they don't go, sometimes we have church at home.
Well, we have to.
Yeah.
That's right. There's so many things that they can do besides do all these video games and stuff.
And do you know that way back in slavery time, that's all they knew was church.
That's all they knew.
And the way they would communicate with each other was hum. They had these songs,
Oh,
like
yeah,
the
they
song
would
coming
sing
up on
them,
the stage.
yeah.
Yes.
They sing, and that's what Harriet
That's the
Tubman
singers,
did.
yes.
She get out there and sing old Negro spiritual song and get them. They knew where she was gonna meet them at, and
Right.
she tell them to wade in the water and all this, and
Yes.
they knew what to do.
They knew what to do.
That was that was how they said quilting was another way.
Mhm.
They would fix arrows and things on the quilt.
Oh,
and
yes,
people
to
to
show them
show
which
which
way
way
to
to go.
Wow, I hadn't heard
Yeah,
that
they
one.
did all of that back then. But there are so many things that, and if we just mentor them,
Yes.
these young people, especially, and try to steer them in the right. There are so many different things now in college you can major in that, you know, it used to be just one or two things,
Just
you
one or
know,
two
but
things,
now
right.
you can get into any field you want to go
Anything.
into, to find you a job. And,
And see,
Yeah.
our people think they are limited to just doing certain things.
oh no, you can get in.
Because you know why I
anything
say that? Because we have no African American ambulance, what do you call it? EMAs,
EMTs.
EMTs.
Yes.
We have,
Nobody's interested. I mean,
Right,
they
nobody's
had the
interested.
schools open for that, but
Right.
nobody wanted to get on there and work with
nobody's
them.
interested
And that is pathetic, you know. I'm looking at the nursing world.
in nursing.
I can
yes.
go to Mobile and Pensacola and go in the hospital and I won't find enough black RNs in there
See,
to do anything.
but you'll find them think they can't do anything
Yes.
but sweep up and, you know.
And to me, you know, if you're gonna be something, try to be the best you're gonna be.
And I
Join your
know,
professional organizations.
right,
Learn all you can, and then if it's more schooling that you need, you go back to school. It's like I say, I went back to school, got my bachelor's and my master's, and I use it to the way I became president of the district here in this whole area.
yes.
And I got on the board of directors for the Alabama State Nurses. So there's so many things you can do.
So
You
many
can't get
things.
people to join their professional organizations and get active in it.
Mhm.
You can't get them to get in
You can't
anything.
get
If I'm
them to
gonna
do
get
anything.
something and go get a
But I-
salary from it, I'm gonna find out what else is going on. And you find out, even now, there are a lot of places that are still segregated when it comes down to work.
I know.
Our people have not broken into the field.
That's right, that's
We
right. They
just
don't
got
want
too
you,
many.
look,
Yeah,
I know we used to go to restaurants when they let
Yeah.
Charlene come in. And we were in the kitchen, we the cooks, and all the other people are waitress.
yeah.
Yeah.
I remember I was in Fort Worth, Texas a few years back, and we were having a big church meeting there. And this man didn't want to wait on us, one of their waiters. And because we had all of the hotels and the Civic Center and everything used up there in Fort Worth. And
Mhm.
this one man was working in this restaurant there, and he refused to, he didn't want to say he didn't want to wait on us,
But
but
he wasn't waiting on
he
you.
went around the corner and started talking to somebody, and we finally, a group of us got up and went to the manager's office. And when they came out, he was still talking to whoever he was talking to. And they saw that he went up on the job in the restaurant.
Mhm.
And we didn't see him for a while, and then when we saw him again, he was nice as pie.
See there?
We, you know, you run into all those things, but I have to credit my church with giving me the opportunity to travel.
Yes.
I met Barack Obama when he was running. He came to St. Louis, Missouri, and you ought to see the kind of things that go on when you have a presidential candidate to come
Oh, I
along.
bet it's
The civil service,
civil service.
they will make you leave out of where you are meeting at. You go out, and when you come back in, they got all kind of stations you got to go back
gotta
and
go
get
through.
searched, your
Yeah.
purses and everything before you, they have dogs sniffing the
Yeah, so,
scooters and everything, but they have made it possible for me to meet him. I met Jesse Jackson in Fort Worth, Texas. I met Michelle Obama in
Mhm.
Nashville, Tennessee.
yes.
And I think before we went there was a bomb or something threat there before that we went there to meet, but she came on in. But I met most of the candidates. I met Hillary Clinton in
Yes.
Philadelphia.
Mhm.
And they have made it possible for us to meet all of them. And Clinton was in Miami there before he was elected. And so, but see, I met Obama the first time when he made his first run, and then the
That's
next
Senator.
time,
No,
the
that's-
Wildcat.
okay. Mhm.
And so they always make it possible for us to. And
Yes.
you can shake hands with them and all, but the civil service guys be pushing them
They're
along.
right there.
They got them, they be pushing them.
Pushing them
And
along.
they can stop, shake hand them, and then they push them along. But it is something to see something
Yes,
like
yes.
that. So I will be going to Chicago this year, and I don't know what we'll be doing there.
Yes.
But it's always somewhere, at least
It's
once a year.
always somewhere. And this
But I
is with the
enjoy it.
church.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And I'm hoping some of the young people start going, you
Yes.
know.
So,
Yeah. Mhm.
what would you say to our people, well, I know they need to learn to love more.
Oh, yes,
We need to learn to love each other more, take care of each other more.
that's right.
That's one reason why I started this senior home health service.
Oh, beautiful.
Because grandmothers are now not looked at
Oh,
like they
yes,
used to be.
they are.
You know,
Mhm.
I was telling them on my radio show, a 20-year-old girl would bring her
Children
children,
to the grandmother.
23, to the grandmother to keep. Now, the grandmother's 83 years old or whatever. And she goes on about her business. Now, grandmother has raised her and other children in the neighborhood.
That's right.
So why do these women feel like
They just throw them out.
grandmother is able to keep all these kids?
Some of them not able to do
They're
it.
not. And it's hard on them. So my heart just goes out to them.
Okay,
It
basic, number one, these young people have got to, you know, like I say, we need to be mentors for them.
We do.
We need to train them, and it's not going to always happen in the home. So we churches are being left with a lot of responsibility
That's right.
to doing it. But we got to teach them God first and the godly way of doing things. And then we got to teach them to respect themselves.
Respect themselves.
Because if you don't respect yourself, nobody else is going to respect
That's right.
you. And then we got to talk to our young men about putting these pants up,
Yes.
these firearms, and all these things that's going on. They don't know what's going to happen to them out there running the streets and shooting everywhere. And
That's
I get
true.
mad every time I see one of our boys on that television to shooting up somewhere.
That's right.
It's
That's
more
right.
to life than that.
They
So
don't
we have
care
got
about
to
each
teach
other
them these
anymore. That's
things.
right.
And if we can, but we have to think back to where we are not in that same group of
That's right,
parents
we're not.
that had these children.
That's true.
That's a different generation.
Different
You
generation.
got the Gen X's and all of those and millennials, and they are somewhat different.
Mhm.
And so we got to teach the parents.
Yes, have to teach the parents.
That's right.
That's so
See,
true.
I know the things that's going on now. My mama wouldn't have stood for.
Oh, man, either.
She wouldn't have stood for it from any of my kids either.
Oh, no, I saw a
Grandma
child.
had most say so than mama did. If you did
Yes.
something, grandma got mad, you
Mhm.
gonna find out what's
You
going
find
on.
out, right.
And then neighbors have got to start helping neighbors.
Oh,
And people
yes.
have got to start caring
Caring about
people.
each other.
That's right. So that's gonna be the key to everything. And then training them, especially when it comes down to voting. And then
Mhm.
not just voting, but the right way to vote.
The right way to.
Because you can go down there and make a wrong choice and elect somebody you don't want.
That's why I tell them it's so important to know who you're voting for.
That's
Don't
right.
vote because somebody tell you to.
It's
You
in
study
their
this person.
platforms and what they stand
Right,
for.
and what they stand for.
That's right.
That's so true.
That's the key to all of it.
That's right. So I think that all around the world should be more love,
That's right.
more love shown.
Mhm.
And as far as working, I don't care if you digging a ditch, I don't care if you mopping
what
the
it
floor, whatever you do, do it good.
There's a book called Ditch Diggers.
That's right. Whatever you do, I don't care what position you
I
have,
saw the movies, read the book, and that was
Mhm.
some movie. Yes.
just do it good.
Let's do it good.
Do it good.
Yeah, and my motto
Because
is
nobody-
always,
I don't care how educated you are, how uneducated
Mhm.
you are, we're all God's children.
that's right.
And with people not being educated doesn't mean they're bad people.
No, it does not mean that.
Because there could be an educated fool, you know.
No, there's plenty of
That's
them
right.
around.
Have book sense and no common sense.
Plenty of educated folks.
Yes.
But I've always used this as my motto, and I think you probably heard me say
Mhm.
it when I was talking the other week,
Yes.
that once you start something, if a task is once begun,
Mm-hmm.
never leave until it's done.
Until it's done.
Be the labor, great or small, do it well or don't do it at all.
Do it at
Don't
all.
do it. So that's been my motto, and I think that if we can teach people the right way to do things, we have the same problem in the churches. Preachers
Oh,
are having the
yes.
same problem.
Right.
They might not like Reverend Johnson's church here because he might not have enough hip hop in it. And
Right. So they're
might
gonna go
somewhere
here.
where they
Yeah.
they beat the drums a little hard.
Yes.
But I do recall coming up, some of the churches utilized the older guys in the church. I remember us having a trumpet player. We had 2 trumpet players in the church.
Oh, yes.
And we had somebody else on the drums, and we had a guitarist.
Mhm.
And those were older men, but they could play along with the.
Oh, yes. My uncle had a church in
Yeah.
Frisco City, and all of his children played the guitar.
Mhm.
I mean, the little ones too big,
That's right.
because he trained them up
You
in that
talk
church.
in music,
Mhm.
yes.
But I know our time is,
Yes,
is pretty
indeed,
well
but it has
spent.
been a pleasure.
It
and,
has been a pleasure,
Yes, indeed, and I know I've rambled some, and I hope I've answered all your questions.
Well, not all my questions,
Yeah.
but we will meet again.
Okay, we will meet again.
Yes, we will.
And,
And I just thank God for you. I thank you for taking the time out. And I thank Bishop
yeah,
and Emmanuel Faith Center and Rhonda and all them
yes.
for allowing us to come in. And he has great platform going here.
Oh, yes.
Great.
Beautiful.
And if I knew everything that he was doing to help the community, I would elaborate on it.
Oh, yes.
But everybody will be hearing from him
All right.
because he has Bishop Wayne Johnson Ministries, I believe.
All right.
Yes, advertisement, all kind of stuff.
Oh,
So,
yes, I remember that.
yes.
I think I'll go in the business and give him my business.
Yes.
Advertising.
Yes.
Of course, that would be at a late date now, you know,
Yes.
but I'm all for anyone who's trying to do something.
Yes.
And one thing, do not discourage anyone trying to make a success or
That's
trying
right.
to achieve something. Try to help them. Don't be like a
Mhm.
crab. As soon as they get up the top, you pull them down.
That's
And that's
right.
been the problem with a lot of people.
Yes.
And especially, I have to say our people.
Our
You gotta do more than pull
Jealousy,
someone down.
envy,
That's
everything.
right. And so we just have to pray for one another and pray that they will get the understanding that they need to keep things going and to improve on on all of the conditions that's
Right,
going on
right.
in our community. Been a pleasure.
That's right. Yes. Well, like I say, I'm so happy and I'm just so thankful to be here with you. And if I would say one thing
Yeah.
to the Atmore community and surrounding area, and that is to show more love
Toward each other.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right. Because it's so easy to be happy. Do you know? And
Well, that's all
I
right.
had doing the work that I do now with seniors. When I visit them, you know, the main thing that bothers them, being alone.
Oh, yes.
They're lonely. One of my clients, she said, if you just come and sit down and talk to me, I would appreciate it. I'll just pay you to come talk to me. And she said, I told her, I said, well, I believe that because having someone to talk to
Oh, yeah.
when you're alone to come see you, that's just like medicine.
Well, and then getting interested, and that goes a lot back to basic training. You have to create things for yourself. If you are lonesome and you know how to do something or any kind of craft or anything, get interested in doing that. And then if it's something you haven't read, do that.
Then read it.
We got to entertain ourselves sometimes.
Yes, and one I told her that she said my Bible words so little I just can't see it. And she was doing like this, I just can't see it, so I don't read it. I said, when I come back to York to visit you, I'm going to bring you a large print Bible.
That is wonderful.
Well, how much is it gonna cost?
You didn't
Nothing.
tell her that.
Not one thing. I'm gonna bring you that Bible so you can open it up, you can see the words before you even put it to your face good.
That's right. And one thing I like to say to Ian and everybody, take the Lord with you wherever you go. As a song that
You already.
Yes.
Yes.
Everywhere you go, in the streets, in a crowd, in your home, and you're all alone.
Yes.
Take the Lord with you.
That's true. So I thank you so
You're
much for
quite
being
welcome,
here
dear.
this evening. Thank you. God bless you.
Yes, indeed.
Love you, and I
Been a
look forward
pleasure.
to meeting with you again.
Okay.
Because we have something else that we have to accomplish.
What is that?
What is this motorcycle group now?
Oh, yes, the South Riders.
The South Rider Gators.
Gators.
Yes.
They are Gators too?
No, I'm talking, no,
Oh,
no,
you're
your
talking
group,
about the old Soul Gators.
the old
group.
Soul Gators group.
Yes, indeed.
So the motorcycle, this group I'm talking about,
Yes.
they are the Southern Riders.
Okay, the Southern Riders. Well,
Yes.
perhaps there will be some things that we can give them some pointers on.
Yeah, so I want to bring all us
Mhm.
together.
Yes.
Yes, because
did
we
a lot
need
of
to-
things.
There's so much history in Atmore. Did you know
Yeah,
that?
I wasn't always an old Scrooge. I rode the motorcycles too.
Yes, that's what I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
That's right.
That's
The
right. So
Soul
we're going to
Gators.
get into that.
Yeah, made up of a
And I
lot of
want these two
citizens
groups to
here.
come together.
Well,
Yes, I get to know.
We still have a few of us left here.
Yes,
The Soul Gators.
yes, and
Mhm.
I'll
You
just,
saw the picture, didn't you,
yes,
that I had of the group?
and, so I know, I keep looking at that sign over there. It says,
Mhm.
come worship with us Sunday. Sunday, 11 a.m.
7 p.m.
And Emmanuel Faith Center.
Mhm.
And I'm sorry, I can't see way over there.
Yeah, okay. I think you're looking at it from an angle, but anyway, that's all right.
But anyway,
Yes,
I think we're gonna end this section.
yes, wonderful,
And we will start back up again.
all right.
And I want you to just keep being the great lady that you are and keep spreading all this knowledge with the whole
Yeah.
community. Because people didn't even know about you. I knew about you, but I didn't know all of that about you.
Well, sometimes you just don't say
And we-
anything.
I
Some people
know,
think
I
you're trying
know.
to brag on yourself or something.
No, but don't think that. Don't think that. You can tell me I just love history.
Mhm.
And I was so proud of your son because he just
Mhm.
loved his mother to death.
Well, I'm proud of him.
And what did your son do now?
He is a special worker for the government in the climate control areas.
Yes.
He's a financial advisor, and he handles money that other countries need to help them with whatever. First, he was doing, they were lending money to other countries.
Yes.
So he works for the United States Department of Finance in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And so he is there at that office.
All right.
And
That's
I'm very
wonderful.
proud of him because he, like I told him, find a church.
Find a church. And you have a
That's
son and
right.
a daughter, right?
I have a daughter and she lives in Montgomery.
In Montgomery.
Mhm. So
Wonderful.
I'm just very happy to, still have them around.
Yes. And your
Yeah.
granddaughter's the one that interviewed you,
Oh, yes, that was Ella Ruby.
Ella Ruby. Well, it's so nice
Yes.
to have this conversation with you. And like I said, we will be meeting up again.
Oh, yeah.
And God bless you,
Mhm.
and may He keep you in His ever-loving care.
Well, I'm gonna keep on trusting him because he's the only one that you can call on when you have
Yes.
time. Don't call on nobody else, call on the Lord. And then he will direct you.